Welcome to the English learning community. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode. Today we're diving into something truly special. A story that's not just going to improve your listening and writing skills, but also inspire you to take your English to the next level. So, grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and let's get started. Fluency through practice. Why perfection isn't the goal. The girl who wanted to speak perfectly. In a small town in the United States, there lived a young woman named Emily. She was 22 years old, with bright blue eyes and a passion for learning. Emily had grown up in a bilingual household, speaking Spanish with her family and English at school. But even though English was her second language, she wanted to speak it perfectly, like the news anchors on TV or the professors at her college. Emily was studying to become a teacher, and she knew that speaking English fluently was essential for her career. But every time she tried to speak in class or during presentations, she would overthink every word. Did I pronounce that correctly? Did I use the right tense? Her fear of making mistakes often left her tongue-tied and frustrated. One day, her professor, Dr. Carter, announced a class project. Each student had to give a 10-minute presentation on a topic of their choice. Emily's heart sank. She hated public speaking, especially in English, but she knew she couldn't avoid it forever. That evening, Emily sat at her desk, staring at a blank piece of paper. She had chosen to talk about her favorite book, To Kill a Mockingbird, but the thought of presenting it in front of the class made her stomach churn. She started writing her script, carefully crafting each sentence to make sure it was perfect. She spent hours rehearsing in front of the mirror, trying to memorize every word. The day of the presentation arrived. Emily walked into the classroom, her hands trembling as she clutched her notes. One by one, her classmates gave their presentations. Some were confident and fluent, while others stumbled over their words. But no one seemed to care about the mistakes. They were all focused on the content of the speeches. When it was Emily's turn, she took a deep breath and walked to the front of the room. She began speaking, her voice shaky but clear. For the first minute, everything went smoothly. But then she forgot a word. Her mind went blank, and she froze. The silence felt like an eternity. She could feel her face turning red as she fumbled through her notes, trying to find her place. Finally, Dr. Carter spoke up. "It's okay, Emily. Take your time. Just tell us what you're trying to say in your own words." Emily took a deep breath and let go of her script. She started speaking again, this time without overthinking. She described why she loved the book, how it made her think about justice and equality, and how it inspired her to become a teacher. Her words weren't perfect, but they were heartfelt. When she finished, the class erupted in applause. After class, Dr. Carter called Emily aside. "You did a great job today," she said, "but I noticed something. When you stopped trying to be perfect, your words became more powerful. That's what communication is all about, connecting with people, not impressing them." Emily thought about Dr. Carter's words all the way home. She realized that she had been so focused on perfection that she had forgotten the real purpose of language, to share ideas and connect with others. That night, she made a decision. She would stop overthinking and start practicing English in a way that felt natural to her. In the next part, Emily's journey takes an unexpected turn when she meets someone who changes her perspective on language and perfection. But the way, please hit subscribe, butto if you are enjoying this valuable story. The stranger at the coffee shop. The next morning, Emily decided to take a break from her usual routine. Instead of locking herself in her room to study grammar books, she went to a small coffee shop downtown. It was a cozy place with warm lighting, the smell of freshly brewed coffee, and the soft hum of conversations in the background. Emily ordered a latte and found a quiet corner to sit. As she sipped her coffee, she noticed an older man sitting at the table next to hers. He had a notebook open and was scribbling furiously, muttering to himself in what sounded like a mix of English and another language. Curious, Emily leaned slightly to get a better look. The man noticed her and smiled. "Sorry if I'm disturbing you," he said in heavily accented English. "I'm practicing my speech for a conference. It's, how do you say, a big challenge for me." Emily smiled back. "No, you're not disturbing me. What's the conference about?" The man's face lit up. "It's about art and culture. I'm an artist from Brazil, and I've been invited to speak about my work. But my English, it's not so good. I'm afraid I'll embarrass myself." Emily felt a pang of recognition. "I know how you feel," she said. "I'm studying to be a teacher, and I get so nervous speaking in front of people. I always worry about making mistakes." The man nodded thoughtfully. "Mistakes are part of learning, no? When I paint, I make many mistakes. But sometimes, those mistakes turn into something beautiful. Maybe speaking is the same." Emily was struck by his words. She had never thought of language that way before. "What's your name?" she asked. "I'm Raphael," he said, extending his hand. "And you?" "I'm Emily. It's nice to meet you, Raphael." They spent the next hour talking about art, language, and the fear of imperfection. Raphael told Emily about his journey as an artist, how he had moved to the United States to pursue his dreams, and how he had struggled with English at first. "But I kept practicing," he said, "even when I felt foolish. And little by little, I got better." Emily felt inspired by his story. "Can I hear your speech?" she asked. "Maybe I can help you practice." Raphael's eyes sparkled with gratitude. "I would like that very much." For the next hour, they practiced together. Raphael read his speech aloud, and Emily gently corrected his pronunciation and grammar when needed. But what surprised her most was how much she enjoyed the process. She wasn't worried about being perfect. She was just helping someone who needed it. And in doing so, she realized that her own fear of mistakes was starting to fade. As they wrapped up, Raphael said, "Thank you, Emily. You have a gift for teaching. And remember, fluency is not about perfection. It's about connection." Emily smiled. "Thank you, Raphael. You've helped me more than you know." In the next part, Emily takes Raphael's advice to heart and starts practicing English in new and unexpected ways. But when an opportunity arises that tests her confidence, she must decide whether to let go of her fear of imperfection or let it hold her back. The open mic night. A few days after her meeting with Raphael, Emily found herself thinking about his words constantly. Fluency is not about perfection, it's about connection. She decided to take his advice to heart and started looking for ways to practice English without overthinking. That's when she saw a flyer on the bulletin board at her college. Open mic night, share your story. The event was happening that Friday at a local cafe. Emily's heart raced as she read the details. She had always loved writing, but she had never shared her work with anyone, let alone in front of an audience. The thought of standing on a stage, speaking into a microphone, made her palms sweat. But then she remembered Raphael's kind eyes and his encouragement. "Maybe this is my chance," she thought. That evening, Emily sat at her desk and began writing. She decided to write about her journey with language, how she had grown up speaking Spanish at home, how she had struggled to feel confident in English, and how meeting Raphael had changed her perspective. The words flowed easily, and for the first time, she didn't worry about making them perfect. She just wrote from the heart. By Friday, Emily was a bundle of nerves. She had practiced her piece a few times in front of the mirror, but she still felt unsure. As she walked into the cafe that night, the room was already buzzing with energy. People were laughing, chatting, and sipping coffee. A small stage was set up in the corner, with a microphone and a spotlight. Emily signed up to speak and took a seat near the back. One by one, people went up to the stage. Some told funny stories, others shared poetry, and a few even sang songs. The audience was warm and supportive, clapping and cheering after each performance. Emily felt a little more at ease, but her heart still pounded as her turn approached. Finally, the host called her name. "Next up, we have Emily." Emily took a deep breath and walked to the stage. The spotlight was bright, and she could feel everyone's eyes on her. She unfolded her paper and began to read. "My name is Emily," she started, her voice trembling slightly. "And for most of my life, I've been afraid to speak English. I wanted to be perfect, to sound like the people on TV or the professors at my school. But the harder I tried, the more I stumbled. I was so focused on getting every word right that I forgot why I was speaking in the first place, to connect with others." As she continued, her voice grew stronger. She talked about her childhood, her struggles with language, and her meeting with Raphael. "He told me that mistakes are part of learning, and that fluency isn't about perfection, it's about connection. And tonight, I'm here to connect with all of you." When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Emily felt a rush of emotions, relief, pride, and a sense of accomplishment. She had done it. She had shared her story, mistakes, and all, and people had listened. After the event, several people came up to Emily to thank her. One woman, with tears in her eyes, said, "Your story really touched me. I've been struggling with the same thing, and you've inspired me to keep going." Emily felt a warm glow inside. For the first time, she realized that her words had power, not because they were perfect, but because they were real. The twist, a surprise encounter. As Emily was leaving the cafe, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Emily, wait!" She turned around and saw Raphael standing there, a big smile on his face. "Raphael, what are you doing here?" she exclaimed. "I came to hear you speak," he said. "A friend told me about the event, and when I saw your name on the list, I had to come." "You were amazing, Emily." Emily felt her cheeks flush. "Thank you. Your advice really helped me. I wouldn't have done it without you." Raphael shook his head. "No, Emily, you did this yourself. You faced your fear, and that's what matters. I'm so proud of you." Rand life is about embracing imperfection and finding beauty in the process. The art of imperfection. The following week, Emily found herself standing in front of Raphael's art studio. It was a small, colorful building tucked away in a quiet part of town. The sign above the door read, "Raphael's Studio, where mistakes become masterpieces." Emily chuckled at the playful slogan and knocked on the door. Raphael greeted her with a warm smile. "Emily, come in, come in." The studio was a vibrant, chaotic space. Canvases of all sizes leaned against the walls, splashed with bold colors and abstract shapes. Paintbrushes, palettes, and tubes of paint were scattered across tables. In the corner, a half-finished sculpture stood, looking like a mix between a tree and a person. Emily felt like she had stepped into another world. "Welcome to my mess," Raphael said with a laugh. "This is where the magic happens, or at least, where I try to make it happen." Emily laughed. "It's amazing. I've never seen anything like it." Raphael gestured for her to sit down. "So, Emily, tell me, how are you feeling after the open mic night?" Emily's face lit up. "It was incredible. I was so nervous, but once I started speaking, it felt freeing. And the way people responded, it was like they really understood me. I've never felt that kind of connection before." Raphael nodded. "That's the power of being real. When you let go of perfection, you allow people to see the real you, and that's when the magic happens." He stood up and walked over to a canvas covered in splashes of paint. "Look at this," he said. "I started this painting years ago. At first, I wanted it to be perfect, a realistic portrait of my daughter. But no matter how hard I tried, it never looked right. So I got frustrated and threw paint at it. And you know what? it turned into something even better. Emily studied the painting. It was abstract, with bold strokes of color that seemed to dance across the canvas. She could see hints of a face hidden within the chaos, but it wasn't perfect. It was alive. "That's beautiful," she said softly. Raphael smiled. "Thank you. It's one of my favorites, and it taught me an important lesson. Sometimes, the best things come from mistakes." He turned to Emily. "Now, it's your turn." Emily blinked. "My turn?" "Yes," Raphael said, handing her a paintbrush. "I want you to paint something. Don't think about it, just feel." Emily hesitated. "But I'm not an artist. I don't know how to paint." "That's the point," Raphael said, with a grin. "This isn't about being an artist. It's about letting go. Just like with language, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to try." Emily took the paintbrush and stared at the blank canvas in front of her. At first, she felt paralyzed. What if she messed up? What if it looked terrible? But then she remembered Raphael's words. Mistakes are part of learning. She took a deep breath and dipped the brush into a pot of bright red paint. As she began to paint, she felt something shift inside her. She stopped worrying about making it perfect and just let herself enjoy the process. She added swirls of blue, splashes of yellow, and streaks of green. Before she knew it, the canvas was filled with color and movement. When she stepped back to look at her work, Raphael clapped his hands. "Bravo, Emily, it's wonderful," Emily laughed. "It's a mess." "Yes," Raphael said. "But it's a beautiful mess. Just like life." The funny twist. A surprise visitor. As they were admiring Emily's painting, the door to the studio burst open. A small dog, a scruffy terrier with floppy ears, ran inside, barking excitedly. "Biscoito!" Raphael exclaimed, scooping up the dog. "What are you doing here?" Emily laughed. "Is this your dog?" "Yes," Raphael said, scratching Biscoito behind the ears. "He's my little assistant. And apparently, he's also an escape artist." Biscoito wriggled out of Raphael's arms and ran over to Emily, wagging his tail furiously. She bent down to pet him, and he licked her hand. "I think he likes you," Raphael said with a chuckle. Emily grinned. "I like him too. He's adorable." Biscoito suddenly darted over to Emily's painting and sniffed it curiously. Before anyone could stop him, he jumped up and put his paws on the canvas, leaving a trail of muddy paw prints across the bottom. "Biscoito, no!" Raphael cried, but it was too late. Emily stared at the painting, now adorned with paw prints, and burst out laughing. "Well, I guess it's not perfect after all." Raphael shook his head, trying to hide his smile. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I'll help you fix it." But Emily waved him off. "No, leave it. I think it's perfect just the way it is." Raphael raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "Yes," Emily said, still laughing. "It's a reminder that life, and art, is messy, and that's what makes it beautiful." Raphael smiled. "You're learning fast, Emily." The heartwarming ending. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Emily and Raphael sat outside the studio, sipping coffee and talking. Biscoito lay at their feet, happily chewing on a stick. "Thank you, Raphael," Emily said, "for everything. You've helped me see things in a whole new way." Raphael nodded. "And you've reminded me why I love what I do. Teaching, painting, speaking. It's all about connection. And you, Emily, have a gift for connecting with people." Emily smiled. "I think I'm starting to believe that." As they sat there, watching the stars come out, Emily felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. She realized that fluency, whether in language, art, or life, wasn't about being perfect. It was about being brave enough to try, to make mistakes, and to keep going. And as Biscoito let out a contented sigh and rolled onto his back, Emily couldn't help but laugh. Life was messy, unpredictable, and sometimes downright ridiculous. But that was what made it so beautiful. If you enjoyed today's story and found it helpful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We've got so many more inspiring stories, practical tips, and fun lessons coming your way to help you master English and boost your confidence. And hey, if you're feeling extra motivated, leave a comment below and tell us, what's one mistake you've made while learning English, and what did you learn from it? We'd love to hear your stories and cheer you on. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, every step you take is progress, and we're here to support you every step of the way. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing in yourself. You've got this.